Welcome to the War on Comics, the show where we dive into comics, break them down, and usually come out with more questions than answers. I'm Omar, and with me is my co-host and fellow comics addict, Colin. This time we took on the art of the gag, a look at two absolute masters of cartoon mayhem, Basil Wolverton and Jack Cole. Their work is weird, chaotic, and impossible to explain, but that won't stop us from trying.
Do I do it? Do I give it to him? We can do this every time, aren't we? Hot Private. This is the War on Comics. I'm Colin over here.
Omar.
Today we're diving into two little goofy, silly books. Here we got Plastic Man.
And some Basil Wolverton.
So two of the great goofball cartoonist comics.
Yeah.
I think the theme this week as it panned out, I think, is humor.
Yes, more or less humor. The art of the gag.
Art being the optimal word here, because I think we're looking more. I think both of these artists are more visual goofballs than anything. I think the humor comics that maybe you see as you get older are like the Robert Crumb school of just
right,
where it's kind of coming from lots of dialogue and chatter. And this era, these are both 40s-ish.
Yes.
And it's, a very different kind of humor, but also I still think very adult, very grown up.
I definitely think these are all like the first inklings of alternative comics.
That's fair. Yeah. And I think, like genuinely chuckle-worthy. Some LOLs.
There was definitely some LOLs had.
Yeah. And I was trying to think if it's like, is it schlock? Is it schmaltz? Is it, what exactly is it? But it doesn't really matter because it's just, it's funny comics. And I guess it's the same in movies and probably in almost any medium where like humor or comedy is not, respected as high of art as something dramatic, your Eisners and all of that. It's all very, serious
high
stuff.
art.
But this stuff is creator-driven. Both of these are writers and cartoonists, and it's all coming from them. They got no real constraints on them, and they are creating, giving you an inside look into their twisted minds.
Just giving you some nice quality, funny comics.
Yeah, so I think these are as grown-up as a proper, artsy grown-up comic, but just, the craft is directed in the way of giving you some chuckles and ha-has.
Right.
Instead of making you really have to scratch your noggin too much.
Optimizing the smile.
Yes. So should we switch cameras here and take a look?
So we're going to bring you over this way.
Yes.
Cool. So now we're checking these two books out.
These are bangers. This is a hence unnamed segment. You show me yours, I show you mine. This is our exchange. You didn't go deep with the Plastic Man comics before.
I've heard of Plastic Man.
Right.
But I've never, I didn't know the origin. I honestly just thought it was a throwaway character from DC. I grew up very outside of the superhero zone.
Yes. And I have heard the name Basil Worthington and Wolverton, and I've seen the images. Weirdly, I had this pin when I was a kid, like a button, like a 2-inch button with a goofy Basil Worthington face on it. And I was transfixed throughout middle school with this weird object. And I think that's where I kind of know him from, is just drawing crazy things. I've never seen his proper comics, which there doesn't seem to be that many of. Am I wrong in that?
No, there's just the works that he did for Mad Magazine.
Okay.
There's the little one-offs. Most of his work is compiled in these volumes. I think there's 2 Fantagraphics volumes. I don't know. These are the ones I've come across. There's probably way more now, but
reading that, it seemed like this was kind of an odds and ends collection more than anything. Which, that said, for an odds and ends collection is astonishing. I was immediately very impressed with these.
What you got?
Page it, just any page you can just kind of see that you're dealing with. In my mind, it's one of the finest, just really, really good black lines. This character, Powerhouse Pepper, right?
Yeah.
It's it's a Popeye. I don't know. Have you read many Popeye comics?
Yeah, the old 1920s ones and stuff like that. Yeah.
Which are awesome. Those kind of have a similar energy, but I guess that's where the power of illustration comes in, because I just am I like the Popeye comics. I think they're fun and goofy and zany, but like this artwork, these like the thickness of the lines, what I call the confidence of the stroke, where it's like, it's just jotted down, but it doesn't look lazy or haphazard, and it's not agonized over. It's just exactly what it should be. And pretty much immediately in this collection, I don't think there's one panel that doesn't have one of these like word gags. All of them are like, if you grew up with Looney Tunes or like any of that kind of, for lack of a better word, schlock, like silly,
just kind of zany.
Yes.
Like it's in all that realm of loony.
Yeah, I mean, what are some of you see in here?
In here,
just the word signs, the signs that are like totally out of nowhere placed.
That is your radioactive.
Why? It's like not a great joke. It's not like, none of these are particularly good. I might go as far as to say, like, as far as the written word goes, there's not great jokes.
And even some of the words they're not forced. They're just kind of like, oh, this is kind of silly. Maybe he's just working at this panel for over and over. And he's just like, you know what? He's just saying shit to himself like that sounds funny.
And the economy of like, here's a great panel. He's batting the pepperecci or whatever's going on here. And just like, why not put a little word gag in there? Why not? Just bang for your buck. And that's the other thing. It's like, there's not
this is my favorite story here.
There's not wasted space. Oh yeah, with all the monsters. And I mean, I think that's kind of what he's known for to some extent.
Yeah,
is
for
like,
sure.
Crazy, I don't know. I just think of the stuff that like Rob Zombie beats off to, like crazy, like pin-up girls and the Wolfman and dragsters and stuff like that. Whatever the hell that art comes from, lowbrow art, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But that's all. It was invented by people like Basil here, so it's amazing to see him just like full on in display. But I mean, it's black and white, but in no way do you feel like shortchanged in this. I mean,
I wondered how you felt about that. Like,
obviously, I guess coming from kind of like an independent comics background, like black and white is almost like code for like, this is serious. This is real comics you're reading here. This isn't some like commercial thing. I think this was very much penned for kids and for just people to pick up off the newsstands and joke about. I don't think there was like, obviously it's not taking itself too seriously, but I don't know that it's giving like, any attempt at like appealing to anyone that doesn't get it, I guess, which is going to be either little kids or people who appreciate, really good cartooning or whatever audience finds it. I think that is who it's for. I don't get the sense that it's like, he's pulling back the weirdness or putting on the weirdness or making it too adult or making it too what we would call now YA. It is just I don't know, a guy having fun. I got the sense that he was having a lot of fun drawing these. And I think, I don't know, something I'm always fascinated with, and almost any story you can go to, it's like, here's these weird, freaky guys, but all the girls just look like pinup girls, was not.
That's something that I saw in the Plas comic, too.
Yes, it's like a strange serendipity, right? Where it's like, now, we'll get to Plaz in a second because he actually went on to do Playboy comics.
No way.
Yeah. So he just, it's, I wouldn't even say it's necessarily horny. It's not like they're like, bending over or in bondage or any of the goofy stuff that you see in like
this story is
superhero
also
comics. Yeah, these I don't know if you call them backup stories, but like this alien guy, it's nonsense. If you're looking for like, serious plot, it's not there. But
that might look very familiar with that pin that you might have had right there.
Yeah, so it's old Stalin getting his political jabs in. But again, I don't get the sense. I mean, I don't know how many like World War II era comics you read, Cold War era comics you read, but like those can get pretty. Not in line with modern sensibilities on race and portrayals. Well. Yes, all that, But I don't get the sense of this. He's goofing on Stalin, but it's like, it's kind-hearted. But yeah, case in point, here's this like the Moon Girl, and she of course just has to be this like
major babe for some reason,
pin-up girl style drawing, and it's like it's a guy who's just drawing to entertain himself. He wants to draw a girl and make her pretty. I think that's, if you want logic, if you want reason, it's not there.
This guy seems like he was a pretty popular in school. Like he might have been asked to make drawings for his buddies or something, you know, like I don't know too much of his background. I know that his later work, he started getting a little more religious.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting. There's like Armageddon stuff that he gets into.
Yeah.
That might be an interesting one to pick up. I don't know where to find that even, but
I love a cracked brain.
Oh, he definitely has that.
Yeah.
Earlier, I feel like I would describe this as like when we were talking about Looney. This feels like a very seriously unserious work.
Yeah, no, and that's where it's like, you know, craft, because again, like the backgrounds is like all the cross hatching on the planets, like this is very well done. The lettering, great. Like I mean, I don't know how to say it. It's high art, you know. It's truly great art, and it's not bound to a narrative per se. You know, these aren't like the stories don't necessarily have continuity.
Yeah.
I don't think they were published in a way that was like, well, if you missed this episode, you're in trouble. You know, and I don't know. It's just nothing to say, but just really, like, I don't know, some of the highest level of cartooning that you can see. If you want to see like what a human hands can do in terms of just trying to make you smile, you know?
Yeah.
This is it, man.
This is hot. And this is what Toontown would feel like from fucking Roger Rabbit or something.
Yeah, completely. The logic of the worlds is negligible. Oh, is this the one that he punches someone in half in the
There's the monster story where he
can,
obliterates some guy.
Yeah, no, he just like it again, and that's Tom and Jerry stuff. That's like you know, that's I guess what the Simpsons were kind of getting at with like Itchy and Scratchy and whatnot, right? We're like
definitely
we're like just how over the top violent these cartoons were, and like you'll see that.
It's like surreal violence here.
Yeah, like flattening the guy's head, you know, like the logic of the world is very, I don't know, surreal and abstract. And even though there's this extreme violence, you know, it's not like, I don't know,
it's not grotesque.
You just got to go with it, you know?
It's part of the story, and like that's also something in Plastic Man as well, like that there is this kind of gross aspect that you could say, but it doesn't feel gross.
Yeah, well, when you get into Plastic Man, you're talking about like that's more body horror.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, brother. Well, I'm not going to find the panel I'm looking for.
It's somewhere.
It's you get the point here, but but that I guess is a good segue to talk about the Plas, because you've never
get into there.
This is I think volume 8, which is supposed to be kind of like right in the middle of Jack Cole's run, and Plastic Man. I don't know. I immediately saw the parallels to the Powerhouse Pepper, because that's also like, what do they call it? It's creator driven. You know, Jack Cole was the writer and creator and artist. I think these were Charleston, and if they're not, whatever, you know, crucify us for it later. You know, but it was one of those comics that DC later, you know, just acquired under their umbrella after bankrupting, and then pretended that they had them all along, which is like, you know, about half of their roster at this point, you know. It was, I don't know. I mean, this is a forward by,
Harvey Kurtzman.
So it's like, you know, you're not going to get much more gravitas than that. Or no, Harvey Picar, my friend.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, even
it's Picar.
Even more
inside.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, it's obviously massively celebrated by like the highbrow types.
So fucking
and
cool.
I don't know. There's this weird like, I call it the Wikipedia entry guys, where like, you know, they just have to give you the factoids on everything. Like, you know, I work at a record store, so when you see people come in on dates and stuff, there's a guy like, oh yeah, Joy Division, you know, the singer killed himself. Oh yeah. They have to blast you with that stuff.
Is that shit like the spark notes of it?
Yes. Cliff notes, right?
Cliff notes.
Yeah, same thing, I guess. But it's like, you have to just, as you're going through life, annotate it. But Jack Cole did die. He did commit suicide.
He did, yeah.
And so, like, when you get to a lot of the, there's a lot of suicidal ideation and
there
like
is.
Guns just being pointed at heads. And
knowing that is... Looking at it from that aspect, it was like, oh man, it's a little dark.
It's very dark. It's very dark. And
this was very funny, by the way. This whole thing where his Plastic Man's like right hand dude,
Woozy Winks,
man. Woozy Winks gets into some shit.
Yeah, he's trying to get these Beverly Hillbillies, and I guess if I was more thoroughly researched, I'd do my Beverly Hillbillies background info before getting on here. But these hicks are supposed to have some oil connections, and Woozy's trying to, get in with them. This is a superhero comic, by the way. Can't stress enough. These are just the things that happen in superhero comics. He's trying to get in with these people, but they're in the middle of this
these guys
Hatfield and McCoy situation, and once again, the people are atrociously drawn. They're distorted, but when it comes to the dames, they got to be very anatomically appropriate because again,
he can draw pretty girl right there, even a fucking
he gave
macho
her
man.
That's look at that, man. If you want to talk about pretty privilege, man, the battle of the Hatfield and McCoys, the bloodiest family feud in American history, it could only be quelled by the Chad of the step in
Chad
of the
Billy
McCoys and the Stacy of the the Hatfields getting together and pairing up, and that's what quells this generational violence.
Man, this was a very surreal story. I think up until this point, I mean, it felt more like basic superhero stories.
Right.
This
it's
awesome
very
too.
Dick Tracy too. It's all
very Dick Tracy.
A lot of Niasse and all the villains.
Yes.
I don't believe there's like reoccurring villains. It's not like in a Batman's rogue gallery of sorts. And even Dick Tracy has like staples who you see repeated.
They come back.
Yeah,
often.
but these guys are just one and done, man. This crazy is he like a pilgrim guy?
Well, this guy was a witch, a man witch, if you will. And this was, let's see if I can find it here. Like this kind of stuff where you just kind of feel the awkward tension in the panel was like, to me, I don't know. I don't do comics. I don't make comics or anything. To be able to do that and think of that in this moment.
Yeah, to address both people and his head's twisting around. I mean, it's a quote unquote fun character to draw because you have stuff like this going on, and it's the rules are very pardon the pun, bendy. You can twist them around to your will, but in a way that's more difficult because now your guy can do anything. You're not bound to physics. You're not bound to reality. The rest of the world is. So you still have to, Basil can draw anything he wants. He can make just a whole world of creeps and monsters and goofballs. Whereas like your side characters, they got to be pretty straight, and like anatomy applies to the people who, except for the ones who it doesn't apply to. So there is a lot of like straight work going in, and then there's the zany stuff. Let me see if I can. I probably won't have to twist too far before I get to like one of my the thing you have to look for in Plastic Man comics.
This kind of stuff, dude.
It's super fun. I guess as we're kind of going through, you can if you're not familiar with if you want to get sold.
This feels like a Jaime Hernandez character right here.
Oh yeah. Just and when he draws the side characters, they are goofy and silly. This is it.
This is the one.
This is the one right here. If you want to know if you want me to sell you on reading Plastic Man.
This one, man, I read twice, which I like. I feel like I didn't give that much time to the other stories because I got the idea. This one, I had to just unravel it again and again.
So if you see any red and yellow in a Plastic Man comic, I don't want to spoil this for you. That's Plastic Man.
He can be a table,
a door to a bank vault, anything. If you see the red and the yellow stripe, watch out. It's been Plastic Man. He's been hiding forever. Now he takes the form of a cat. He can punch as a cat. He can defend himself as a cat. But when this cat bites him, he's turning human and just uppercutting this cat.
He said, hell nah.
Puts his whole human fist into the cat's face. And that's again, we're not artists here, but that's a good cat.
That's a nice cat.
If I had to draw a cat getting uppercutted, it would look exactly like it would. I would hope that I could come up with a crap.
You could just feel that cat just getting launched, man.
And again, it's goofy, it's silly, it's sight gags, but it's also like, there's a craft to conveying that motion, to conveying the impact. Like, this is, I don't know, man. I just I love this stuff so much. It's so like well executed, and this is volume 8, man. There's way more. This is like in the middle of the run, like.
Wow.
He goes like this is his life, is just cranking out like high quality, high crafted human art. And like, man, I don't know. This stuff is like, really relegated to the dustbin kind of, or like just the outskirts of comicsdom kind of, like I said, you're a comics fanatic, and it's like, Plastic Man, he's a goofy guy,
It felt like just no one gives him the respect, because I've read there was a story in the 90s that was like, I think Alex Ross drew it. I don't know what the story is, but it includes a cavalcade of characters.
Right.
A ton. And I think Plastic Man is in there, and they refer to him as the strongest superhero, but he doesn't care. It's just like, as a kid, I felt like, so if you're like the strongest guy, why don't you have, the reverie or whatever of like being that? But it's because he just doesn't give a shit as a character.
I mean, I guess if I had started you with the first one, you'd see he starts off as like I think he's like a bad guy, like he's a Eel Martin or something like that, whatever it is.
They refer to that a ton.
So he's like a bad guy, and then he gets dipped in the stuff, and then he becomes this elastic guy, and so he works with the police, and he can like go undercover in the underground world because he's he's a criminal, and they know him as a criminal. But then, boom, he'll turn into a table and get you. He'll get you.
He'll get you. I think that as time goes on here, his graphic work. Look at that. That's so wild right here.
Yeah, the page. I mean, these little things going on in the page layouts. And the character totally lends itself to this kind of like screwball zaniness. It wouldn't make sense as like, the Ditko 9-panel grid or whatever. You have to kind of be, I don't know, chaotic with it because it's such a chaotic character. And to your point, I mean, oh, look at that. It's just a normal horse corral here. I don't think there's much to worry about. Unless. But
Class is here.
But to your point, like, I don't think it's acknowledged because, this should not exist in a world of Batman. This is the portrayal of the character, which is just his own guy in a zany world that operates in its own zany way. And the problem with being a DC intellectual property is that like now you have to contend in a world where him and Darkseid exist together, which
is kind of mind bending.
Yeah,
in that way, because this is so cool.
Yes.
Like, this is way cooler than what I would have read if I grew up in this time,
right?
Maybe.
And I've read some non-Jack. I mean, and there should never, realistically, should never be a Plastic Man without Jack Cole. Just like when they'll trot out like Watchmen comics, so where it's just written by. It's like no, don't put the fucking owl fighting Green Lantern. Stop it, you guys. It's not.
Why?
This isn't the point of what these guys were doing.
This is fucking Mortal Kombat out here.
Yeah, exactly. So there is really no reason for Plastic Man, and there's no logic to it because this is a cartoon character, and again, he's existing in this world that has at least since the 80s. Desperately tried to make you take comic characters as deathly serious, but there are still some like funny, goofy Plastic Man comics written in the post 2000s, where it's like people, have reverence for these comics, and they're like, let's have some fun with the characters. There's some like animated shorts you can find that are really fun because, of course, it's like pure like Looney Tunes kind of stuff. Because he is all the DC properties are Warner Brothers properties, so technically
they're in the same universe.
Yes,
now.
he is as much a Looney Tunes character as he is a Super Friend.
Did this precede the Fantastic Four?
Yeah, by a long shot, and it's there's no really getting around it. Like Reed Richards is just a 1-to-1 rip as far as like power level goes, and that's again just the frustrating thing of the comics fandom as a medium. Is it's like, well, how does his power level stack against Reed Richards? And it's like it's just this. It's just whatever these like they're not long stories. They're about like 6 pages a pop. It's like crammed with words. They're just fun stories. It's just that. And I don't know. I guess part of the one question I had while reading both of these being kind of like small self-contained stories, like does it lose something not having a continued narrative?
No.
Like, I think again, even like to go to the Meg Mog and Owl strips from Hanselman, those are oddly like very continuity driven. Like
definitely.
It's like a fun. It's like almost a kind of a surprise as you're reading them to realize they're all part of this continuous story. It's like, oh no, you're actually taking all the insane stuff that's happening in these stories seriously, and there's consequences for it. And
the story gets continued.
Yeah, and it can get somber. I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment in its own right. But this is the exact opposite, where it's just every story is self-contained. It's short. And like and I bring up Hanselman because those comics are also humor driven, probably a little more based on dialogue and like I don't know. There's a certain kind of humor where it's how sitcoms work too, where it's like based on the character driven comedy, where it's like here's the guy that comes in and says the zany things. The guy comes in and says the zany things.
Pops in, pops out.
Yes, if you don't know that the guy comes in and says that, it's maybe not as funny in and of itself. But after you're, if you've lived with the characters, if you're familiar with the characters like you would be with, a sitcom or something, then it makes then the humor is accentuated.
Yeah.
You can't really do that effect with these comics because they're all self-contained stories, and so I can see that being a little bit of a con in the sense that there's because continuity does make you keep reading more. It does engage you and you want to keep seeing what happens next, etc. When you take that out, I mean, this is in a way, as far as humor goes, like the raw, uncut China White. This is like the pure heroine.
Absolutely.
It's like we're not relying on that. There's no familiarity. There's no like. Again, I threw you in the middle of this run here. It's like, there's nothing lost. I
felt like I didn't need too much of a background other than the preface.
Yeah, and there is a little bit of like, because every story has to stand on its own. There's kind of a fatigue, I guess, that comes when you're reading, in the sense of just like, this is a little bit repetitive. And I felt that with the Basil comics too.
Yeah.
And it's just, modern sensibilities or whatever. Again, it is bonkers that these are written in the 40s and they are still quite literally LOL,
Yeah, they still work. But in that same vein, I feel like you would have been way more bored back in the day.
Right. So this would have been complete This is like Vine or whatever.
This is exactly like Vine, actually.
Yes, I guess now we're in TikTok, so I can't say Vine, but you know what I'm saying. Like this was brain rot of its day. This was the skibidi toilet, of its time in terms of just like picking it up and chuckling, And I don't know. There's pros and cons to it because you have that fatigue quality, but that's just
what kind of story would you want here with this? You know what I mean?
Like, I have no notes. I'm not saying like here's where they fucked up. Let me tell these like two of the greatest cartoonists to ever do it what they should have done.
Right?
No, these are perfect in and of themselves. But I just think there's that. It's an interesting thing to think about, that there is a trade-off in having self-contained stories versus continuity.
I think that's it almost feels like those monster of the week kind of thing, like you were saying earlier, that there's these bad guy. There's a bad guy that Plas and his number 2 always go up against.
Right.
And there's something that goes wrong.
And he probably has to hide as an object.
And he twists his way out of it. And he gets one over, and it's not revealed until the final page, like what he's gonna do. It's the setup. There's definitely a outline that he's working with, a formula.
And I mean, that's Scooby Doo. That's like a lot of
exactly what I was thinking of.
I mean, that's a lot of entertainment that you grow up reading and taking in. So. Again, I don't think it's not like, they messed up by doing that, but it is interesting that you have kind of a trade-off if you were going to tell a story in that way.
That is that exchange. And maybe it's due to it being kind of like a relatively new art form.
Right. Yeah, they're working out the kinks, but again, I mean, the fact that you can crack this open damn near a century later, flip to any page and have a chuckle. It's like, that's built to last, Right. That's ironclad. That's not tight. Like, you have to read these slow volumes that start before you'll really figure out what's going on with these. But it gets really good. Do you know what I know?
Yeah.
It gets really good. You open it up. It's good.
It's good. Yeah. It just is good. So I think I would want to ask you, would that be due to that, language that, I mean, I don't know if you would necessarily need to, you can read it on different levels. You can read it just on the image basis. And I think you get the gist of everything. But then the dialogue kind of just helps to push the what's going on in each panel. I think maybe that's what I love about both of these guys, is that graphically they are so strong with their panels.
And if you want to look at some Basil stuff, because I do think the Basil dialogue is so explicitly humorous. I mean, look at, I just flipped open to a random page here, and you can see there's basically no dialogue.
He puts a fork in his head.
He's obviously done him wrong, so get revenge. Puts a fork in the head. The fork bends because for no reason ever explained, Powerhouse is a god of sorts. His hand hurts from it, and then he just curmudgeonly goes back to doing the same thing he did before. Knowing now that this guy has the power of a god, and he twists and breaks his arm there. So it's like this is a lot less work to read. It's a lot less fatigue on the eyes, and thus I think there's kind of more of a immediate value. But the dialogue is so fun. Do you want to use the wrench or the sledgehammer, Doctor? I'll try both if the crowbar won't work. This fellow has the toughest teeth I've ever wrestled. This is an interesting book. And he's just this is just, again, I don't think there's depth to it. I don't think there's character development or anything. It's just, I think the dialogue in this is, in a sense, I don't know. I guess they're doing such different things, because this is just gags. This is just fun.
Pure fun.
The Plastic Man stories, they do have to kind of tell a police story in a weird way. It does have to work as a detective story to some extent, whereas this stuff can be anything it wants to be. And thus the dialogue, I think, is all, there's just so much wordplay. Stop screaming. I can't work with you carrying on like that. You mean you're going to give up? Of course not. Open that kisser so I can ram the dynamite into it. I'm going to blast. No, this is a jacket and I won't have it soiled. Then scram. I won't putter with patients who are particular. All that alliteration. Yeah, that the dialogue is almost concocted just to have that complement the goofiness of the story. So, you absolutely don't need to read any of the dialogue, but if you do, you're just getting kind of bonus comedy.
Yeah, it's every square inch has something.
Absolutely, just pure economy.
And let's see. I did have one for Plas. I mean, there was the Woozy Wink stories, surprisingly MVP on this.
He is goated for sure.
The homie is goated. Something that I love, though, is that Jack Cole does play with a lot of the like the squash and stretch stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of adding a little more of that. See, this is where I think you're in the differences where Basil Wolverton could be a little more silly, less constrained to genre.
Yes.
Right? Like he has to kind of tell a crime story, but this is the silliest crime story that you could probably come across.
Right, or it's solved by the silliest man.
Right. like this kind of stuff though is
yeah, I mean, he's stretching up. The panel stretches to kind of fit him. Like that's again, craft. Underline it 3 times. Like it's fun to look at, sure, but it's also like laying that out ahead of time, plotting it, all that. It's like to come from one guy. It's galaxy brain again.
Yeah, for sure.
Huge, high art, nothing less.
Definitely. I mean, this background. It's. I don't want to dive too far into the minutia, but it's like everything about this is artful. There's like that kind of like Will Eisner kind of thing happening here.
Obviously, Spirit is like a point of reference, but and you'll have, I mean, the textbook, Eisner's splash pages with the thing written out, but it doesn't feel like a bite in any kind of way. Like it's still very much its own thing. It doesn't feel like a parody, I guess.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't. It doesn't feel like it's stupefying it or something.
And I think, I don't know. I'll admittedly just have a difficulty kind of reading older comics generally because, like, again, just any old page here, just a wall of text. That's a lot of words coming at you. The EC comics, I feel, are like particularly egregious because they'll also have like the what do they call the not the dialogue?
It's like the little boxes that set the tone.
Yes, the narrative boxes on there. Let's call it that for now. Like. It's a lot on the eyes, and it's like, I mean, I grew up reading Tales from the Crypt and all those, like buying the reprints from the comic shops. Like, I'm neck deep in reverence for EC, but at the same time, like, you can't tell me that isn't taxing.
Yes.
Again, compared to just. Even Eisner figured out how to pare it down by the time he did his graphic novels. But just in terms of like comparing to modern comics, like it's a lot more calories your eyes are burning reading all those words. And there is a smattering of that with the Plastic Man. But again, to your point, it kind of, you can just skip all that and just look at the pictures, and it's still like electrifying and just fun and dynamic, and every page has that. So, yeah, I'm...
Dude, the way this kind of just flows as well, like this whole thing happening. I think that he was working within the genre, but in a way that he was like, well, I'm going to make it work for me too.
Yes.
And like work within those constraints. Because I do think they had an audience for like a superhero. Yeah. Superman was probably happening at
for
this
sure.
point. All this stuff, pardon my ignorance, guys, but I like, fuck, man, like that looks like it could have been an 80s panel.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, this is, I mean, yeah, as far as like how your eyes follow and read a comic, like I don't know how I could possibly better illustrate it than this. And like, yeah, that's just, again, craft, but also super silly.
Yeah, it's very silly. And he's stretching in time. This is like not just happening at one moment. He's stretching in time, talking here, and then I just, stuff like that is, might be simple to people making this stuff, but it's like what I find to be what makes comics goated.
Yes.
For sure. This is what keeps me coming back to the comics. It's like those little subtleties and that you might miss, that you probably don't notice, but it's that hidden value about them that it's just, I don't know.
And that it's such a deep world where stuff like this is waiting for you to read. I'm sure.
Yeah.
All 10 people watching this there's like one who hasn't read Plastic Man.
Right.
And
right.
it's like, read Plastic Man. It's great. And like it's such a deep world and it's chaotic, like there's not a canon where it's like, here's what you got to read first, kids. It's not like, I mean, I guess there are literal classes taught about comics and all that, but it's still, as far as the amount that's produced, there's such high quality stuff just waiting around any corner, and there's not, I don't know, a clear cut like here's the top 100, or even with films, there's like the Sight and Sound 500 or
that you should watch before you die or whatever.
Yeah, there's like endless lists out there that are put together like that. With comics, it's so chaotic, and there's so many gems waiting for you. I think when we're like trying to have like, I don't know, some kind of set questions about like comedy and goofs and all that, but I don't know, in a way it's like defeats the purpose. Like,
I think so.
I was like trying to figure out while reading this how to talk about them, because it's like, look at this, it's funny. How does this work? Why does the exaggerated form work? And I mean, I think to some random thing I've heard about cartooning is like, you have to take a normal form and then just distort certain features, and that's where the funny comes in. But I feel like that's such a boring way to talk about comedy. It's like hard K sounds are funny and whatever. Alliteration is funny. And here's the rules of what way to work. Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. I guess beyond just like, well, what makes this funny? It's like, A, it just fucking is.
It just is.
And B, it's not just that it's funny. It's not, you sitting around making a goofy voice to make your buddies laugh. Like, craft underlined 18 times with both of these guys in very different ways, with some weird similarities that, like their obsession with drawing bombshell girls. Some weird crossover, but just totally idiosyncratic to their own levels, and also just the height of their prowess. It's amazing that you can bring out two books on these levels and just really be floored in the same way.
Yeah, it's like you lose something when you try to explain this.
Yes.
You lose that. I don't know what the terminology is, but it's when you try to quantify it, it doesn't work. It's that element where it is the comic medium that is speaking for itself. I like this panel right here as well. I just want to, like, this dude is asking let's see, I have always thought these costumes becoming to me. They're about to kill Lucy Wings.
It's dressed in like an Aztec garb.
This is just like a combo that you would be hearing, between two guys in like this Mayan mob thing. I mean, I think it would be silly to explain, because it's just, you have to experience it to kind of understand it. Like to feel that kind of graphic element plus the underlying plot, and then the way that he's kind of like explaining himself. Because I feel like it came with like this first, the action, probably plot, but then how it's working panel to panel or on the page. And then I'm thinking he's throwing words on there.
Yeah, to kind of like, I don't know, clarify. And I really do think, and again, this is maybe just the time of the era, like, I think it was just like, how do we give people their money's worth,
Right.
And it's not just drawings, it's put a lot of words on. And you could argue that maybe slows down the pace, or that it feels less frenetic, though this feels incredibly frenetic. But again, as far as value, getting some money out of your entertainment, I think maybe now I think there's a lot of comics I read that really go too far with that. And like, it is just, again, an Image comic produced right now that you pick up and you read in 8 minutes. And it's like that, and let alone that those comics cost like $5 a pop or something. Right. It's like, it's pretty hard to communicate value with that. And this is before you get into, well, what's the quality of the story, or the this or the that. Just the pacing, it goes by so fast. This does slow it down. It does make you read more. It maybe creates a little less fun, but in terms of value, that's how I at least justify or understand the wordiness of some of these things. Is it's like, giving you bang for your buck.
Right.
Have we glazed these enough? I
think
like
so.
The glazing.
I think we've waxed poetic.
Let's go back
much.
to the other shot, and we'll sign off.
So that's a freaking close on these guys.
Omar, you good?
I'm good.
We've said what we need to say. We'll be back next installment to talk about some completely different comics. We should probably plan that out. We should put that on the agenda. Like next time, we'll be like, next week we'll talk about XYZ. We're flying by the seat of our pants here.
We're still figuring it out.
We're figuring it out, and who knows if anyone's seeing this. If anyone's seeing this, you're seeing some people figure this shit out. So thank you for putting up with it. Why you're doing that, I don't know. This is on you, and this is on us.
Yeah.
So if you liked it, we're going to be back doing the same soon.
This will be this is fun, man. It's just fun trading some comics. It's I love discovering all this new shit. It's what else are we gonna do?
You give him a sign off.
Yeah.
At ease, privates. This is the War on Comics. You got Ward. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We're working it out. We've admitted.
You've been warded.
No,
it's shit.
Yeah.
So what did we learn? Honestly, some comics just aren't meant to be understood. They're meant to hit you like a pie in the face. Wolverton and Cole weren't just making comics, they were bending reality, one ridiculous panel at a time. Trying to break it down kind of just feels like explaining a joke. Kills the magic. But maybe that is the magic. Anyways, that's it for this episode of the War on Comics. If you're digging the show, hit us up, drop a comment, and let us know what comics we should throw ourselves into next. See you next time.
It sucks so much.